For nearly 40 years, the New Hampshire Humanities Council has been bringing the power of ideas to people of all walks of life in all corners of the state. Our work exemplifies tonight's theme, the democracy of storytelling. We gave voice to Bhutanese storytellers and artists through the creation of a bilingual children's book, The Story of a Pumpkin. Before you leave tonight, check out the video playing in the lobby about the creation of this book. It was produced by our summer intern, the gifted young filmmaker Brendan Gillett. We give voice to adults struggling with literacy, welcoming them into the world of books and ideas, creating a foundation for economic opportunity and educational success for themselves and their children. We make possible myriad opportunities for people to tell their stories, from mill workers in Berlin, to townspeople in Washington, New Hampshire, to students at Manchester high schools. We invite citizens to reason together, to learn from some of the state's finest scholars, as well as to listen to one another on such challenging topics as the meaning of the Constitution, the role of religion in public life, science and society, and immigration policy.
So, I bought this bike, to ride it around. I don't have a car, so I buy this bike to ride. And one day, I cannot find my bike. And later that week, I go to Babson's supermarket, and I see this guy, he's riding my bike. So I say to him, "Hey, that's my bike."
Yeah? So what?
So give it back.
No.
Now, in my culture, you do not steal. If somebody steals from you, you take it back by any means necessary. I say to him, "Hey, give me back my bike."
No. Why should I give you this bike?
Because that is my bike. You see, I put a little sticker on the back there.
Yeah, well, my friend gave me this bike.
I don't care who gave you the bike. I want my bike back.
No. What are you going to do about it?
So, I punch him.
Oh!
Now, I knew there was a police car waiting across the street, but nobody taught me to dial 911. So the police car comes flying around the corner to Babson's supermarket, and they start yelling at me.
You just punched him.
Yeah, I punched him. He's a thief. So what? Now, in my country, if somebody steals from you and they are being beaten, the police come and they will beat them. No question. But here, the police, they were questioning me.
You punched him.
Yeah, I punched him. So what? What's your problem?
The problem is, you punched him.
Long story short, there was a police chief who knew about different cultural backgrounds, so that little situation was taken care of. Now, the police chief and I, we became very good friends. And soon I began speaking at the police academy, at the high school, at community functions, about the different experiences one might have when they merge into a new culture, with new regulations and whatnot.
A new culture.
With new regulations and whatnot.
How do you know?
You just experienced the power of story. In this case, a true story from Laconia, New Hampshire, that's part of Dreaming Again, a play that we commissioned as part of our recent initiative on immigration. Written by Genevieve Achel and performed by the New Hampshire Theater Project, the stories of Dreaming Again are from immigrants who came to work at the Amoskeag Mills in the early 1900s through those arriving today. I'm grateful to our encore sponsor, Granite Investment Advisors, for making this scene possible tonight. Dreaming Again has now toured the state twice, most recently to 15 middle and high schools, seen by more than 3,000 students and 350 teachers. In Dreaming Again, connections are made between the stories of our immigrant ancestors and our newest neighbors. Audiences have a chance to gaze through another's eyes, to get a glimpse of the terror of persecution, the sorrow of leaving home and family, the joy of fresh beginnings, the hard work of starting over, stories as varied as the humans who tell them. That's what we do here at the Humanities Council. We make the human story accessible to all. And that accessibility is key. The knowledge of our past, the ability to think critically and creatively, the opportunity to talk civilly with those with whom we disagree, these must be available to all if we are to thrive as a nation. And frankly, I worry about the health of our nation. Cuts in funding for the humanities and the arts, the shortchanging of the teaching of history and civics in schools, the echo chamber of our sources of news and information, all are dangerous trends that weaken our ability to govern ourselves. Thomas Jefferson said it well. Well, he said lots of things well, but he said, if a nation expects to be ignorant and free in a state of civilization, it expects what never was and never will be. The New Hampshire Humanities Council is an independent nonprofit, not a state agency. We work every day to educate the public, from students to seniors, and to engage all of us in thoughtful consideration and conversation about some of the most pressing issues of the day, as well as about the eternal human questions. You can help make those important occasions of education and engagement possible by contributing to the Humanities Council right now. Use the gift envelope found in the basket on your table to enclose a check or credit card number, or scan the QR code found in your program to make a gift securely online. And I thank you for your vital support today and throughout the year. At this point, rather than say more about the importance of the humanities, let's together experience their power and beauty through the remarks of our keynote speaker. Here to introduce our speaker is Kent Rich, producer at Events United, our keynote sponsor.
So the same guy that moves the podium on and off the stage is the one that introduces the keynote speaker. So good evening, my name is Kent Rich, and on behalf of the Events United team, my brothers there in the back, I'm pleased and honored to be here tonight, and I'm very proud to be the keynote sponsor for tonight's event. At first, I was very thrilled to hear I'd be introducing tonight's keynote sponsor, Colin McCann. Most of you know his work to be powerful, evocative, and lyrical. But I'm sorry to say, while preparing my remarks tonight, that I made a horrifying discovery that shocked me to the very core. Yes, Mr. McCann is a National Book Award-winning author. Yes, his latest novel, Transatlantic, magnificently weaves together 3 stories of the shared emotional history of Ireland and America. And yes, he does have an awesome Irish accent. But, ladies and gentlemen, what do any of these attributes matter when one considers the terrible fact that I uncovered in my research? Some of you might know what that is. Colin McCann is a Yankees fan. I know. All right. So, hey, this is my time at the mic there, pal. I know that you share my surprise, and I know that you, like me, may question how any thinking person or author of this magnitude can support a team that is the sports equivalent of the evil empire, but I'm not inventing this charge out of thin air. Mr. McCann has admitted this monstrous alliance in no less than the New York Times. Mr. McCann went so far as to write an essay for the collection Damn Yankees, 24 Major League writers on the world's most loved and hated team. I like the hated part, actually. In his essay, Mr. McCann writes, and I quote, "This is what baseball can do to the soul. It has the ability to make you believe in spite of all other available evidence. My son, John Michael, is 10 years old. We are in the bleachers. He leans into me and says, 'The pitch is going to come in high and fat.' It's still a new language to me. The pitch is thrown, and indeed it does. It comes in high and fat, and 94 miles per hour. A-Rod leans into it like he's about to fell a tree and smacks the ball, and it soars, that little sphere of cowhide, rising up over the Bronx. And it is a moment unlike any other. When you sit with your son in the ballpark and the ball is high in the air, you feel yourself aware of everything, the night, the neon, the very Americanness of the moment. Isn't that beautiful? It's awesome. Thank you. But it is also undeniable evidence that McCann supports our rival to end all rivals. The team of Alex Rodriguez, Billy Martin, Derek Jeter, and God help us, George Steinbrenner. Who roots for Goliath when you can root for David? All right? But, of course, New England hospitality requires that we turn a blind eye to Mr. McCann's egregious taste in baseball teams. As America welcomed Mr. McCann when he arrived from his native Ireland, so we, the citizens of Red Sox Nation, welcome him with open hands and open hearts. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Colin McCann.
Recover from that one. Fantastic. Thank you so much. My son, Johnny Michael, was a Red Sox fan up until last year when he decided that he would root. And he actually came to me and said, should he support Boston? And he ended up supporting the Baltimore Orioles. But I took away my great joke of the evening, which was going to be, I am for tonight a Red Sox fan. And I can prove it to you. I'm wearing this bandage. I was in the bar earlier on and there was a big bar brawl with St. Louis and Yankees fans. As my great friend Frank McCourt said, never let the truth get in the way of a good story. I am delighted to be here tonight. Thank you so much. This is fun. I've been looking at the work that the Humanities Council has been doing over the past few days and researching. And I have to thank you all for being here. And I have to thank you all for inviting me here. I think that the work that has been done in this place, in this state, is quite incredible. And I think you all deserve a round of applause for yourselves and all the work that you have done. I mean that very sincerely, and tonight I want to talk a little bit about the democracy of storytelling, the democracy of giving, and the democracy of going home. And it really was an incredible thing to see how deeply grassroots that all of the programs that every single one of you are involved in. It struck me that it was actually the essence of democracy, going across borders, going across boundaries, going across all sorts of different organizations, so that the people who gather together in this room actually become the sort of community that we all need to be. And I want to talk to you a little bit about the idea of storytelling, and the idea of giving, and the idea of also belonging. And I'm going to start out in Ireland. When I was a kid, I used to love getting lost. I'd pedal along the high hedges and the hawthorns, the sharp curves and the potholes of Dublin. And I loved cycling through areas like Glendalough or out by Howth. And later in my teenage years, I'd take off for long times, sometimes on the Belfast Road. And later still, in my 20s, I walked across Ireland a couple of times. They used to stop me and say, "What are you doing?" And I said, "Well, I'm walking to Galway." And they say, "What are you, like 3 sandwiches short of a picnic?" Like, why are we walking to Galway? There's a bus down the road. But I loved it, and I loved being lost. I was a bit of a vagabond. And people would look at me and think, you know, where is he going? And I didn't really know where I was going myself. But I slept out at night whenever I could. And I felt like I was meeting roads and becoming roads. And I liked not knowing where I was going. I thought that part of the joy of being lost was the realization, conscious or not, that I had a home to go to, that I eventually would be able to return home, that there was somewhere safe in which I could turn around in order to be lost again. And I did have a home. I grew up in suburban Dublin, and I used to laugh with again with Frank McCourt, and I said to him that he got all the misery in Ireland. How dare he? I needed some of it, and I had a happy childhood. The world's worst thing for a novelist. So I felt like I had to cast myself out and push myself off and lose some sort of innocence and step into a new place. And I developed in myself the idea, the privilege of going away, constantly sort of going away, and also the fear of having to come back home. So that a couple of years later, at the age of 21, I embarked on a journey that took me across the United States from Hyannis in Boston, where I was definitely at that stage a Red Sox fan, 12,000 miles across the country. I saw an incredible America. I saw all sorts of people. I lived with Amish in Pennsylvania. I met Indian Native Americans in New Mexico. I lived with wealthy people in Colorado for a while. I actually got a chance to dig ditches in Idaho. And I went across this country, and I was embraced by all sorts of people. And I had left my country behind. And so being an immigrant was a way to be lost. And I sometimes get asked if I was an exile, but I never felt in exile from anyone or anything. I wasn't forced to leave my country like so many of my generation who'd left because there were no jobs. But I left out of curiosity, and I went to embrace the world and to live my life out loud. I also wanted to live close to the earth. There was a need in me to get away from the comforts of being home, even the comfort of my family in Ireland. There was, when I look back on it, I suppose, and the emigrants in the room will know this, a sort of strange desire for sadness, for separateness, for loss. And as emigrants, we wound ourselves, and then we sort of leave in order to be able to return. I come from a country spectacular with its sadness. We're not happy unless we're sad. The American Wake is probably the best example of this, and some of you will know this, what the American Wake means. If you were leaving Ireland in the 19th century and the first half of the 20th century, they would have a wake for you, and you'd be present at your own funeral. But imagine the scene in Cove, in Dublin, in the various ports along the west, where the coffin ships were lined up in those bays all those years ago. So we've been leaving for centuries, and I think we'll always leave. And I think we need our leaving in order to truly understand what we have left behind. Some people might call that nostalgia, but I like the Portuguese word saudade, which is a longing for an absence. And there's nothing wrong with this nostalgia at all. And so I took my trip across this country in search of an absence as a way to get lost and as a way to find home. The generosity I found in those travels was absolutely astounding. The landscape, the wide embrace of storytelling. I was at the edge. It was an incredible journey, and I discovered a way to live, a way to listen, and the privilege of listening. And this is where we come to books, and this is where we come to everything that you guys do tonight and everything that we are involved in for the future. Because as readers, or as people who are involved with the humanities, we are immigrants also. We have to step into books, and we have to step into art, and we have to step into social activism, and we have to step into the bodies and the minds of others in order to leave the normality of our own lives and to understand that deepest democracy, which is the privilege of being other. So we take off from shore, and you do it in all sorts of ways. And I'm not here just to preach to the choir, but I am here to sort of to try and shore up what it is that people do when they give of themselves and they imagine themselves as being other. We're not sure where we will land. I always think of the notion of writing, that I'm taking off in a little boat and I am not sure where I'm going to go. And normally I capsize right at the very beginning. Sometimes I get taken off and I drift and I go and I get lost for a few weeks or a few months. But occasionally I find land. And when I find land, it's the land of somebody else. It's the land belonging to some other imaginative place and people. It becomes like a Galapagos of the imagination. And for me, it feels that I am on this adventure and that I am sort of, I'm Darwin, and I'm there to discover something new about human nature, which is exactly what we all do when we look around us and we give to other organizations and we say, I am prepared to make a physical leap into otherness, into a new organization, into people who are doing proper things on the ground that might be away from my own experience. Embracing the immigrant, embracing those who have difficulty in telling their own story, looking after libraries, looking after social organizations that we might not necessarily know. In our own immediate lives, we have to make a big leap into that Galapagos of the imagination, where we begin to journey, we begin to discover all sorts of newness, and eventually we find something deep and proper and profound about the human soul. So, excuse me, I'm going to get a glass of water. I have a glass of water right here. So, thank you.